What's up, YouTube? Joseph here, and it's discussion time. I pointed out I was going to do a discussion video about Harpies, and I was going to do it via YGO Pro, and I had everything set up till my recording app bugged up on me. So I'm going to be doing the pretty much live camera thing because I unfortunately could not record well off of my phone. Off of the app, and it bugged up. So Harpies, as we all know, is one of the original archetypes of this game, and pretty much the basis of this channel and why I'm going forward on with Harpies itself. If you split Harpies pretty much up, you have your basis Harpie Lady, and then you have Harpie 1, Harpie 2, Cyber Harpie, and Harpie Lady 1. Which these 5 monsters are treated as Harpie Lady no matter where they are, hand, deck, or graveyard. Which also means that you can only play a combination of set of these monsters. It means you can't go 1, 2, 3 Cyber in a deck. You can't have all 5 in the deck, or you can't have 4 in the deck, which I forgot on that basis. With the growth of Harpie Ladies, of course, if we're going to talk about the start, we have Harpie Lady, Harpie Sisters, and Harpie's Pet. We don't include Sky Scout, or as we all know him to be, Harpie's brother, because he technically is not Harpie Lady. His translation was incorrect. When he came out, they just assumed because he was a winged beast like Harpies that he would fit in. I think at this point, Sky Scout, his only relatively to the deck was that he's an 18 beater, but he didn't work with any Harpie cards, even though he had Harpie in his name. So for their early translation or correction to that, they just said if you weren't Harpie herself, you weren't included, and exclude Harpie's brother. So yeah, well, good. I got him out the way. Alligator, as we all know, was the first of 2 spells. Following that was Harpie's Feather Sister. And these 2 are pretty much some of the most broken cards in the Harpie lineup, next to Hysteric Sign and Feather Storm. Alligator allows you to get Harpie Ladies from your deck or Harpie Lady Sisters from your hand or deck to the field, as long as there's a face-up Harpie Lady on the board. When a face-up Harpie Lady is on the board to activate it. Harpie's Feather Sister, destroy all the spells and traps your opponent controls. With cards like Hysteric Sign, you can easily search for it. If we were in OCG, or if we're playing Hysteric, or if we could use the third effect of Feather Storm, which was if it was destroyed by your opponent while it was in the spell trap zone, you can add it from your graveyard or your deck to your hand. So I just gladly wanted to get those out the way. In terms of combination of cards with Harpies, of course, we have many combination of cards that led up to pretty much Lord of Tachyon Galaxy, where the deck really flourished. Some of those cards I like to talk about why I had the chance. So I'm going to go to this third pile over here. At the time when Harpies came out, we didn't really have much. I don't own most of the cards either that I use in terms of games that I played, but of course we can talk about Rising Air Current, we can talk about Sylphid, we can talk about Hunter Owl, Playfly as well. When we talk about that, some more Bird of Divinity and Slate Warrior, Garuda, Skullbird, Fate Bird, and Blue Wing Crown. These are all monsters that in the original decks we used these monsters, not only because they were sequentially winged beasts or they were wind attribute, but they really did circumvent with the Harpie lineup, the Harpie archetype, and just how the Harpie archetype flowed. You had Slate Warrior at the time, a 19 beater, And when he was flipped face up, he gave you that additional five. He had additional 500 stat to him. He can help you beat over stuff. You had Garuda and Sylphie, who are pretty much banish a wind monster from your graveyard, send them to the field. Garuda can change can alter the attacker defense position of that monster. Sylphie can just easily help you discard cards from your opponent's hand. When it came to field spells, Rising Air, before Harpie's Hunting Ground, we had Rising Air Current, which was one of the generic field spells to most decks, similar to Mystic Plasma Zone, Luminous Spark, just cards that said, hey, this card's activated on the field, increase this archetype, this attributes monsters, of these monsters by this, and decrease their defense from this. And that's also why I pointed out Faithbird, Red Skullbird, and Blue Wing Crown, because for Harpies, these were sequential monsters at the time before we got our Harpie lineup. And even in video games, My Valentine, pretty much the Harpie Queen herself, used these cards in some of her decks. Not in the anime, but in the manga. Well, not in the anime, but in the video games. Also, cards I can count for that. The name's Dark Witch, the Amazoness archetype as well, which are cards that she's circulating into her deck to help in those cases. As we go on, we can go into monsters like the Barrier Statue of Stormwind. You can lock your opponent out for some of the monsters that weren't wind attribute. You can also use cards like Spiritual Wind Art Miyabi, and at that basis gave winds the basic archetype of returning cards. Ryza the Storm Monarch is also a good reference I can make as well. If you decide to go into that whole portion of the deck. Another couple of monsters I want to go into before I go into like the synchro variations and stuff. Swift Birdman Joe, Lady Ninja Yay, Spiritual Ninjutsu Art of Transformation, tributing a ninja to go into a winged beast was one of the things you can do. Later on, if you look into the ninja archetype, dragons, get Harpies, Pat, Exceeds, and stuff like that. So I wanted to point those guys out. And then in combination with Dark Monsters, going to Dark Samorga Divinity, which is a really good setup if you were using Swift Birdman Joe. Remove the back row of your opponent, set your back row, Bird of Divinity, make your opponent lose 500, I really get 1,000, but for every 500 of spell and traps, for every spell and trap in your zone, you would reduce that damage by 500. So with Harpies in combination, Harpies, back row, removal, and stuff like that. So then we can go now into the synchro variation. I know this may sound a little stretched, but I'm just working with what I have at this point. So I do apologize if I'm missing cards or missing stuff. So, of course, if we talk about the generic synchro lineups, Black Rose, Ancient Fairy, Stardust, Colossal Fighter, stuff like that. And, of course, we didn't have tuners, but we had archetypes that had access to tuners, such as Dragonides, Mist Valley, various forms of Harpie, not wind monsters, but winged beast monsters in general. And, of course, I have to also include Black Wings in this lineup. I'm not going to include Wind Witch because I don't have any Wind Witch cards. But Wind Witch is more of a later section of it. But if you do count it for the synchro aspect of Harpies, they do count. I just apologize because I don't have enough stuff to talk about Wind Witch as I wanted to. But Wind Witch is also on the board as well. When it came to the synchro variations of the deck, with Mist Valley Falcon, we got a 2,000 attacker as opposed to a 1,900 attacker. And then you had the basis of the synchro monsters. Like in any other deck that joined the synchro lineup, Those were really good cards at the time to support your deck, and there were variations of Harpies, especially if you played the video games. There was one that was built to basically use the effects of Ancient Gear Town in combinations with Harpie's, not Harpie's pet, but Ancient Fairy Dragon, where she could blow up back row, not back row, but she blow up a field spell, get her in and help you search for a field spell. And a deck that I did prior to, I think I explained how it reminded me of the video game in which Ancient Fairy Dragon was the opponent, and her deck was built around field spell manipulation. Harpies are a great aspect of field spell manipulation, or just spell and trap manipulation in combination with Ancient Fairy. Pop a field spell, search for a field spell, put a field spell in play, and benefit from it. And of course, when all else fails, you have Stardust Dragon to defend you, and Black Rose to wipe the field in case you needed to. Other honorable mentions, I can talk about TGs, Hyper Librarian combos, Glowable, Spore, the whole lineup of Plant Synchro, which really came to fruition once Star Strike Blast and Duelist Revolution came out. Also Effect Veiler, who I can talk about for a little bit with the hand trap situation. Because most decks at that time were starting to use hand traps. Effect Veiler is one of the sequential hand trap monsters. Next to her is Maxi, Ghost Ogre, the new one, I think her name is the Joyous Spring, and then Winter Cherry, stuff like that. So, Harpies don't stray too far away from, meta. It's just we have to build our meta, build the deck to help support the meta. Then as we go along, we can start talking about synchros. Not synchros, exceeds, and the combination of how the exceeds and the stuff in exceed decks work. Especially when it comes to the fact that for a good portion of the beginning of the exceed era, we didn't really have much to really support us. If I do go back to talk about just the support we did have, I mean, besides Harpie Queen, when she came out, Harpie Queen was sequentially. And it's sequentially, hold on, I'm actually going to get the Harpie Queens themselves. When she came out, she wasn't too fruitionally our best hit of a monster outside of the Harpie archetype because, she was sequentially the starter of our monsters for the Harpie archetype. I'm sorry, I take that back. And 19 beater, she was Harpie Lady while she was on the field or in the graveyard, as opposed to being in the deck. And it really got to a point where, we kept screaming, we want more Harpie support. Everybody else is getting support. We started to see that support. It did take a whole entire another set for us to start seeing the support. But I cannot forget to talk about Lightning Chidori, who, in a combination of a Harpie deck, just really helped. And because Harpies could generate the exceed plays, we can really go into that. And that was just off the basis that we still had one of the most powerful trap cards for a special summon in the deck, and that was Hysteric Party. And the fact that you can play the fact that Queen was Harpie Lady while she's on the field or the graveyard, so in combination you get all your Harpies on the board, go into a monster like Lightning Chidori, and then start doing combination plays. It'd take us a lot longer to get what we had asked for. But when we did get it, and that leads me to that second portion of the deck. When we did start to synchro, we started to exceed. I'm sorry, we didn't start to synchro. We were already synchroing, but at that point we gave up on synchros and we started to exceed. And that's what laid us to the basis of Harpie Chandler, Harpie Dancer, and Harpist. And then in combination with the three of them, we also combined it with Hysteric Sign when we got that card. And of course, Harpie's pet Phantasmal Dragon when he came out. Or she came out. So when it does come to the basis, we grew from where we were so we can get, ready for stuff like this. For once, we finally now have allegedly 15 Harpie monsters as options into the Harpie deck. With Harpie Chandler, you can pitch a Harpie card, so some of the Harpie monsters from your deck to the field and utilize that to exceed summon, which made plays with Harpie's Pet Dragon even more valuable into a rank 7 play, because at the time, when Chandler, Sign, and Dragon Phantasmal came out, we were seeing the evolution of, we were pretty much seeing the rise of the elemental dragons, the dragon rulers themselves. And you had the basis of Harpies, who could utilize those dragons as well, because you can set up the dragon setup, put a dragon on board, put Chandler on board, exceed, and make sevens. Like Draco's second Big Eye. Harpies now have that option to do that if they decide to play Harpie's Pet. With some players to this day, some of us do, some of us don't. The other option, which was just a mediocre little option, but was still an option, was Harpie's Pet Baby Dragon. And although Baby Dragon isn't technically, it doesn't have level manipulation, but if you stacked on enough of the Harpie cards to support Baby, then you could use Baby's effects. But when you look at it at a strategic point, you don't want a monster that doesn't do enough. And that's why at times these two relatively see play in the Harpie deck. And that also leads me to Harpie's sisters. I know it took me a little while I did talk about sisters, but I haven't really talked about sisters. And the only reason why most people don't, a large portion of why we don't play sisters, a lot of us don't play sisters. I don't speak for everybody, but sisters just doesn't really work in this concept of meta anymore because of the fact she's still really difficult to summon. This is the only Harpie monster in the archetype that has the issue of being summoned, because her stipulation to be summoned is what's holding her back, and that's because of Elegant Egotist. And you have to play Ego first to summon her off Ego in order to play her. Which, as if you look at all the other Harpie monsters, you can normal summon them, special summon them without any issues or anything that has to condition them to be summoned, even Pet Dragon. But when you look at Harpie Sisters, that is the main reason why it's hard to play Harpie Sisters. So that sits on that basis of why those cards are difficult. But when we got Dancer, we got Harpies, that just added to that fuel. Especially when you're playing Harpie's Hunting Ground, Dancer can bounce a wind monster in the field back to your hand, and it could give you additional some other wind monster. So then you can really start popping spells and traps. Especially with Harpie's Hunting Ground. And then you had also, once Joey's World came out, we had the utilization to Harpie Phoenix formation, which isn't a bad card, but the stipulations for this card just hold us back even more. Unlike the anime, where you can destroy all your opponent's monsters, and then your opponent take damage equal to all their attack. You have to have 2 or more Harpies. You had to not conduct battle phase that turn. And you could also not special summon from your main deck or your extra deck, which only left you with the options of your hand and your graveyard as a really means of special summoning. If you did decide to play this, which means you couldn't exceed in the Phantasmal for defense, so you left yourself open unless you did play defensive spells and trap cards to protect you in case you did end up winding up playing Phoenix formation, which ends up why a lot of people don't play it in that relative sense. And then we can talk about Harpies. Harpies pretty much just helps you search for a Wingy Beast monster with 15 or less attack when she's sent to the graveyard and is in the graveyard during the end phase of which she was sent to the graveyard. So you can get actions to get your Chandler or your Dancer or Harpie Lady 1, Harpie 2, or Harpie 3, or normal monster Harpie Lady because of those low stats. And of course, because she's just Harpie Lady, you can Hysteric Sign, Hysteric Party, You summon her, of course, off of Chandler, and you just really have a lot of options with Harpist. Now that she's out and you have that set up. Then, if we go into even more stuff, of course, I can talk about um, Harpie's Featherstorm. When this card came out, this card really helped Harpies deal with going against the hand factor, going with the huge monster effects. Not saying that we couldn't before, but now that we have that option, and the effects of this card help us when it comes to those options. The fact that we can discard a not discard a hard card, but if you control the Harpie monster, you can activate this card from your hand. If you control the winged beast, which unfortunately those dragons are not winged beasts, but they are Harpies. So I guess if you could say you'd had like a Mist Valley soldier and a Harpie's pet on the board, you could play this from your hand because you control a Harpie monster, and this effect should still be activated because you have a winged beast and negating all your opponent's monster effects to the end of the turn. So you had your Harpies blowing up cells and traps, and then they can't max see you, they can't effect Veiler you, none of that stuff because this negates that. So yeah, it's so many things, so many options, so many variations of this deck that keeps me going. It is one of the best support cards because we used to have literally support cards like these two, Cyber Shield and Triangle Accessory. Like, don't get me wrong, these are good cards, but they don't have that correct. They don't have any synergy anymore with the current Harpie lineup, and that's primarily because the cards that they're used for either are just there's no correct wording. Like Shield, it doesn't say Harpie card, so you can't search with it off of Hysteric Sign, which would have been great because then we would have a power attack card. Yes, it'd be useless a power attack card, but if you look at the bases, we could have searched for it. And the same thing with Triangle Accessory Spark. It could give us a chance to run Sisters if it said this is a Harpie card on it. Like, you know how Summon Skull has that text on the bottom of him that says this is treated as an Archfiend card. So he can work with Archfiend decks. I know even some of the newer variations of Summon Skull have that text as well. This is treated as an Archfiend card. So, or they have it in their name now that they're Archfiend cards. So it really does disappointing factor with Konami that they didn't reprint these two and give them that treatment like cards like Summon Skull, who has that I'm treating as Archfiend card because he used to be treated as an Archfiend card. A spell I can give an example to, Axe of Despair, is now treated as an Archfiend card because in the OCG it was called Fiend's Axe, or I think Archfiend's Axe, or it was something relative to the Archfiend cards, and you could use the Archfiend cards to search for it, which unfortunately Triangle Assassin Spark and Cyber Shield did not get that reference to them either. So very disappointing, but I mean, it's stuff like that, in terms of support. And I mean, we did have a little bit of our own monster support before we got Queen in the form of Birdface, which he wasn't a bad card, but he just cycled out because I'd rather have you use an effect if you're destroyed by battle or by a card effect than to just be destroyed by battle. And of course, he searched for Harpie cards. With Sign now, we can do that. And with Harpie Chandler, we can easily do that. And Harpist can do that as well. Another monster that I wanted to point mention to is the Wind Rose. Her effect to be Harpie. Her effect is Harpie Feather Duster. But like her elemental lords, you needed the required 5 monsters exact in the graveyard to summon her through her own effect, and she can't be summoned through other effects, which was a letdown, but a really decent enough support card if you decided to play when the Wind Lord herself. To use the Harpie Feather Duster effect, not a bad monster. It's just stipulations and stuff like that. So that's why a lot of times cards like this just end up getting cut out anyway. But in the basis, I think I practically covered as much as I could. When it comes to just generic spells, generic traps and stuff like that, Um, the best thing I can pretty much tell you about that is just you can go for whatever combination you feel comfortable with. Because no, not everyone is gonna run the same 1 to 2 axes you're gonna run when it comes to running um Harpies. And in that case, I can only give you suggestions. I can't give you full out bases. Um, there's so many different variations of Harpies. Even when you look back at it, in the beginning of the game, we really had like 3 or 4 cards. Harpies had multiple variations of the decks that you see today, and multiple variations of stuff that we use to pretty much get through a duel and get through those bases. Um, and I would point out, like, of course, I can point out a couple of key cards from Hero Force down to, Raigeki, Dark Hole, Lightning Vortex, even the Monster Sport we did get from the other archetypes. Like I said, we have Black Wings, we have Miss Valley, and we have Wind Witch, which is a really good support type. Now, I mean, some people are going to say, well, what about, True Kings and Zodiac? I mean, if you're looking at it at a competitive level, then those would be good options. But at some points, if you look, I even look at the OCG when it comes to Harpies, and like for a period of time, they only use it because they're just beaters, relatively, or just have really good monster effects, which turns out to be the reason why most of them use those cards. Um, I personally, like I said, it's just always personal preference of how you build your deck, how you want to utilize your deck. Um, and that's the basis of why a lot of the stuff I showed you, some of the stuff I've used, some stuff that I've tried out. Um, and I wish I could show you guys more in depth, but my first recording just had to go bonk, so I had to cut that out. But that's pretty much the end of it. It's a very long video, I do understand, but I do want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much for support. Always leave a like and comment, and we'll just keep this discussion up about Harpies, because very much this is my bread and butter when it comes to this. Come to my channel now. It's just I'm gonna focus on Harpies, building Harpie decks, and just going through the Harpie archetype and stuff like that, and just whatever ideas and stuff I can spam. Don't get me wrong, I'll dabble in other archetypes if I have the chance to or have the urge to. So yeah, that's pretty much it for now, you guys. And this is HPJ signing out. And till next time.